Hello everyone, and thank you for joining me for another Sims 3 speed video where I'm back in Sunset Valley renovating this world from the ground up. Initially I made some edits in Creator World and I've added a few extra lots that I am now starting to build on, and today I am building an apartment building that is facing the ocean. So it's on this new kind of terrace that I made in Creator World where I just added some extra lots. And I've already placed an arcade or built an arcade, and now I am doing an apartment building. So this is going to be a penthouse apartment. It is 3 bedrooms and 2.5 bathrooms, and it is called the Ocean View Terrace Apartments. And yeah, the habitable apartment, because in The Sims 3 only one apartment per apartment building is actually habitable, but the habitable apartment is the penthouse, so the top story. And yeah, I was wanting to do this because I did want to add an extra apartment building to Sunset Valley. I plan on converting all the lofts that are on, well, they're kind of across the road from the museum and the hospital. You can kind of see them in the background now. I want to convert those to apartments as well, but I want those to be more or less kind of mid-end homes rather than high-end, whereas this is very much a high-end home. So it's very modern, very sleek, and I must say, and I will apologize in advance, that I haven't built a modern build or attempted to build a modern build in The Sims 3 for a really long time, and I'm also doing this with no custom content. So this was I wouldn't say it was challenging, it was just I was playing around a lot and experimenting a lot. So there's a lot of cuts in the footage, and you will see some, I guess, transitions between quite dramatic changes, and most of that is just because I was in between the I guess the scenes that I edit, or the clips that I edit. I did a lot of fiddling around in creator style. So yeah, I do apologize in advance, but it's just the nature of this build, and I guess the fact that I just hadn't built a modern style building in The Sims 3 in forever. So there was a lot for me to I guess play around with, and yeah, a lot of experimenting with color schemes and textures and even objects, because The Sims 3 is quite an old game now, and a lot of the assets are quite dated, and so I did, try to get creative, and by using retextures of some objects to make them look a bit more modern, and that was really fun to play around with. Actually, I have really enjoyed this challenge of playing around with the older styles, or even just vanilla Sims 3 with no custom content, and trying to be as creative as I can. I did use a lot of Sims 3's the mod for the Sims 3 decorator tools to really I guess change the functionality of some objects. So you'll see me do some experimentations with some kitchen cabinets, and I'll talk a bit more about that as we get to it. But there's just a lot of I guess, yeah, experimental stuff like that I've done in this build. So I've put the initial shell together, and I did look at some apartment buildings in real life to get some inspiration. So I've been looking at buildings in small towns in the United States just to get some inspiration for some types of modern apartment buildings that are in small towns. I did mention previously that I didn't want to use the late night apartment buildings or the shells or anything like that, because while I do want to renovate Sunset Valley, I do want it to maintain a Sunset Valley feel. So I don't want to plop like massive skyscrapers or anything in this world. So I do want it to maintain small town vibes, and so I was looking for inspiration in small town United States for apartment buildings. So it's quite a sprawled upper level. Like, I thought about doing the apartment over 2 floors, but I don't know how that would operate gameplay wise. I've never built a two-story, or actually, no, I've never built a two-story apartment building in The Sims 3, and I just figured, just for simplicity, and given that, you know, I haven't done a modern build in so long, I'll just keep it to the single floor on top. Yeah, just to make it easier for myself, really. So you can see I'm playing around with the windows, and in terms of the store content that I've used, I'm not going to list it here because it was actually quite difficult for me to go through the last build and kind of find all the store content that I used and then come back to the video, and because I actually had to insert and edit into the last video where I listed off the store content that I used. I'm not going to do that this time. I'm just going to put a list in the description of the video of the store content that I've used in this build, and that's pretty much the store content that I could find, because I do have quite a bit of store content installed, and yeah, it can be quite difficult to list off absolutely everything, and also say what I've used in a video. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a list in the description for the store content, so that way you'll know whether you have that content or not. And you know, if you do want to get it from the store, then I'll put a link to where that item is found in the store. So getting back to the build, and you can see here what I've done with the windows is I've used this texture, this red and white texture that is the perfect size for these bar house windows from the store. So it means that I can have this texture that kind of extends underneath the windows, and is like, it's hard to describe it. You'll see what I mean when I start recoloring them, but the frame of the window is the perfect size for that particular wall texture, and it just makes the texturing of the building look a lot more interesting. And it was actually something that I saw on a real life build, and I wondered if I could replicate it in The Sims 3. And so I was looking around for different wall textures and windows, and yeah, I just happened to find two that fit perfectly. And yeah, you'll see the magic take place pretty soon, but it was actually quite a nice find. And you know, that's just another one of those I guess bonuses of playing with a vanilla game when you don't have any custom content. If I wanted to kind of replicate what I saw on this build, like, I probably would have just gone and looked for some custom content wall textures that did what I wanted them to do, like, immediately, without me having to think about it too much. So I was pleased with the outcome of that. You can see I've put like an initial floor plan together on the top floor on the penthouse apartment, but that changes not dramatically. I'd say the right hand side to the screen changes the most, because I did have it sectioned off quite a lot, and that's not really a feature of modern builds, especially apartments. They tend to be open plan living, and I think it's just a symptom of me having built so many older buildings, particularly in this game with my Majestic Valley world that I have started and will continue probably in the future. I'm not going to say exactly when I will continue with Majestic Valley, but it will definitely return. But yeah, there's been a lot of I've spent a lot of time building sort of older buildings in that world, and so older buildings tend to have closed off spaces, walled off spaces, and yeah, I think I was just used to that, so I immediately put down a closed off floor plan, and then realized what I'd done. I even tried working with it, so I started furnishing it, and then I was like, why does this look so weird and cramped? So yeah, I go back and revisit the floor plan a bit later on in the build. But you can see I've just textured the building, and that really emphasizes what I was able to do with the windows. So the black texture is limited to underneath the windows, particularly those skinny windows from the bar house set, which yeah, I think looks pretty cool. But I had the initial shell in mind, and that came together quite quickly. It was more or less just the exterior details that I spent the most time on, and again, just with the color scheme. So you can see I'm kind of experimenting with different colors. I tried white windows on one part of the build, and then I didn't like that, so I went back to the black windows. the building, the color scheme overall is very beige, brown, grey, black, typical modern color schemes, and they are pretty easy to work with. And yeah, I do like those color schemes, but I try not to overuse them. I said it in the Sims 4 video before that it can be quite easy to default to those color schemes because they do go so well together and they're quite easy, neutral colors to work with. But I do like to get a bit experimental from time to time. But this really wasn't the case. Like, I wasn't feeling very experimental in terms of bold, like out there color schemes. I did want to play around with just some kind of standard modern color textures, color schemes and textures and stuff like that. Now on the ground floor, what I'm doing is making some kind of fake storefronts. So it's all windowed off, and these sections here aren't accessible to other Sims, so you won't be able to go inside these shops, but it's more or less just for decoration to make the building look a bit more realistic and just add some extra detail. There is a parking garage on the ground floor. There are 3 parking spaces. Now, again, I'm building this apartment and I'm not overly familiar with apartment gameplay in The Sims 3. I don't play in apartments too often. I like the look of them and I like them to be in worlds sometimes, but I can't say I play with them too often. So I'm not sure how car parks work when they are in a public space of an apartment building. Like, can the Sim that's living there use that parking space, or is it just limited to people who visit the lot? Like, I don't know. But those parking spaces are there, and then there's also some various, I guess, garage space, miscellaneous decor that I put in there as well. So yeah, with back to the storefront, I got a bit distracted there with the garage, but back to the storefront. So there's just a few fake, I guess, storefronts that you'll see where you'll see what I do. It's kind of like a display window where I put some objects in a display to look like that's what the shop sells. But yes, of course, you can't actually go inside them. And again, I'm just mindful of performance of the lot and the game itself, so I don't want to put too much stress on the game by having, you know, these fully furnished shops that Sims can enter and do stuff in. It's just there for decoration, and so I've placed hidden room markers inside the shops themselves, or the fake shops, the rooms, and I've also put some skip level markers on the floors of the apartment building that aren't occupied. So yeah, just mindful of performance, because I do want some longevity in this world and I want it to be able to be played for a while. I'm going to be playing in this world when it's finished, and so for my personal sake, and I guess for anyone else who wants to use this world as well, yeah, I do want some longevity. So you can see I'm putting the initial storefront together, and this is, I guess, like a clothing shop, like a women's clothing shop. So I used some of these mannequin things, and I got some posters for behind them. And then what I did was I recolored the mannequins to look like they were the outfits that were being worn in the posters, even though they're completely different styles of dresses. But I did my best to try and make it look like that is what's being advertised. So you can see here we've got the pink dress on the left and the purple dress on the right, and then on the other side it's got like this blue and it's almost like a golden black accent on the dress, and then another dress that I just kind of made up because there was only one person, one Sim in that poster. So, and I'm just doing some recoloring, and these shops, I wanted them to look kind of high end, so just making sure everything is kind of sleek and tidy, and yeah, just nothing too bold, or well, I guess this is kind of bold. That poster is very bold. What am I saying? But yeah, I wanted it to look sleek and tidy. The next store that I'm doing is like an art store, and I mean, it could also be like a gallery, I don't know, but the storefront pretty much just has artwork on the front of it. You can see I've placed some decor on the street front as well, or the front of the building. The plants, I changed those a little bit later on because they were a bit too dramatic for the style of the building. I felt like the building just needed some more minimalist planters, so I do replace these ones that I've put down at the moment. But now I'm just choosing some artwork for the art store, and I was looking for different styles, and then I found some paintings that more or less looked quite similar, and so I placed those down. Now I'm pretty sure that the painting on the far left, I actually used that in the penthouse itself, so I guess you could say that whoever moves into the penthouse bought that painting from the store downstairs, maybe, who knows, but that's a possibility. And then of course the last store here, it's just got a tiny storefront, tiny display window here, and I just put some lights in here and pretend it's like a light store, and then that it sells this kind of matching base game set of lights. So nothing too extravagant, but it does make the ground floor look more interesting rather than it just being a whole bunch of empty space. I mean, there is still a whole bunch of empty space there, but it makes that empty space look like it has a function and a purpose. So yeah, I am pleased with how that came together, and now I'm just at the portion where I'm replacing the planters, and so I've gone with these ones here, which I think are from Showtime. They're just nice, basic planters there. They yeah, don't draw too much attention to themselves, which is kind of what I wanted, and yeah, just putting those into place, and then there's a sign as well. Now I'm just putting the call box on the front of the building there, so it should function very much the same as a nightlife apartment building. Late night apartment building. I'm thinking of The Sims 2 as a late night apartment building. I do put a mailbox, and you'll see in the footage that I put a mailbox in the lobby of the apartment, but when I think when I moved the Sims into this lot just to test it out to make sure everything worked, the mailbox moved to the exterior by the garage. So I left it there because I think clearly the game was like, no, you shouldn't put the mailbox here, you need to put it here. And actually where the game put it was, I was like, oh, you know what, that's actually a pretty good space. So I left it where it is, where it was moved to. Here we've got the garage, and it's a very simple garage, just some lights, some parking spaces, and I do put a dumpster in here and a couple of other decor items, but it's not really that interesting. I don't imagine Sims really spending much time in here unless someone wants to go dumpster diving, by all means, but yeah, it's just a very basic garage. So I was going to put in some crates, but they didn't fit in there. And actually when I was putting the garage together, I made it the shape of what it is now because I wanted it to look like cars could at least back out and, you know, reverse and then drive out, because when I initially built it, it looked like that any Sim who drove in there would not be able to reverse. Like they would have to reverse out of there completely rather than being able to turn their car around and drive out facing forward, or driving out forward ways. So I had to rearrange the garage a bit, and then even when I did that and put the dumpster in, I wanted some crates, but they didn't fit. Now I'm working on the lobby, and I'm just figuring out the color scheme, and this is probably an area where you're going to see a cut to a slightly different color scheme, because yeah, it was one of the spaces where I started experimenting with some of the interior color schemes and yeah, what I wanted to work with for the rest of the build. And yeah, these lobbies are very, very basic. There's nothing really that exciting about them. I'm just showing, you know, them being put together so you know that they do have lobbies. There are two entrances into the penthouse. So there are the lift entrances here, so the Sims can take the lift up to the penthouse, or they can take the stairwell. So I did build a stairwell, and that was just to take into account that I know lifts can be a bit frustrating for some people. They tend to be complained about in The Sims 3, or at least I've seen complaints about lifts in The Sims 3. So I do, first of all, I put 2 lifts in the building, and I also put a stairwell that goes off to the left hand side of the house, as you can see here. So yeah, that was more or less just for convenience. And now I am working on the interior of the build, and I've started off with this was going to be like the kitchen and living area, and then the room next to the kitchen, which you'll see in a moment, I was going to put in the dining room, but the orientation changes completely. I completely changed the layout of this entire room, and the color schemes that you can see me putting together now do not change. I left some of this in here just so you could see what I was experimenting with and the color schemes that I was experimenting with and the textures I was experimenting with. But yeah, I can say that none of this stays. So I've put the kitchen together now, or started putting the kitchen together now. I was experimenting with this kitchen, I think it's the Ultra Living kitchen set. And I looked at this kitchen set and I thought, you know what, I might be able to do something with this kitchen set by retexturing it and having it look more modern, because at the moment as it comes off the shelf, it's a very stylized looking set of objects, particularly the kitchen. And that can be very difficult to work with. I've noticed that with most of the store content actually is very stylized and very themed, which is kind of frustrating. Like, I wish they had kind of done some more plain looking stuff, but I guess they were just feeling very crazy and ambitious with the store. But I'm grateful for it nonetheless. It does have some good content on there, but yeah, just with that kitchen set, it didn't work in the end, so I just went with the Into the Future kitchen set. That one's definitely the most modern looking of the kitchen set, so it only made sense for me to use that. And then here is the living space, and where the living room is going to stay. So this is just me kind of playing around again with different items and colors and textures. I tried using different sets and, you know, matching them with textures and stuff like that, but in the end I just chose one lounge suite, and I think it's a base game lounge suite that I choose in the end. And yeah, I just stick with that one for the rest of the build. But yeah, this is probably where there's going to be a lot of jump cuts to different stages of the design process or the decorating process. So you can see here I've jumped forward to the lounge suite that I've chosen. So I keep no, actually I don't. Oh my gosh, now that I'm looking at this, I know the lounge suite changes. So this is maybe a common occurrence throughout my commentary where I have to backtrack on what I've said, because I think I am going to use something for the rest of the build, but I don't. I end up changing it. For context, I actually spent about a week putting this together, just slowly, bit by bit. I chipped away at it for maybe an hour or two during the week, and so some things aren't that fresh in my mind in terms of the initial decisions that I made. So the coffee table stays the same. The rug disappears and then it comes back. But yeah, we will see more of that throughout the videos, the changes that I make in that space. At the moment, I am just changing up the floor plan and making it more open. So I've completely opened up the space to where the dining area is going to go. There is a little bit of a hallway between the entrance and the dining and kitchen space, but that goes. I open that all up as well. But what I want to have is for the kitchen to be on one side of the room and then the dining room to be on the other space. So you can see I've put the kitchen all into its new space now, and I am going through and just preparing the space for the dining area. So I am choosing a table. I thought about using a big table to start with, but then I changed it to a smaller table. So this one here, it looks okay, but I wasn't that keen on a glass table. I'm not sure how I feel about glass tables. I was looking at reference photos and I couldn't really see that many glass tables. Maybe it was just the types of designs that I was looking at, but that pretty much, because I couldn't see any glass tables, I wasn't really sure of the best way to use it. So I do replace it with a smaller table that doesn't have a glass top. For this wall here, I've used some kitchen cabinets to create like a sideboard or a hall table. And I choose these cabinets to start with, but then I replace them a bit later on with some cabinets from Into the Future. And then I've got this mirror above the cabinets. And yeah, this kind of space that I put together, it more or less stays the same, but the objects just change. I've got this plant here from the store, and I am choosing this kind of divider here that came with, I think, Town Life stuff that divider came with, and I used the Sims 3 decorator tools to turn that into a shelf, which is quite cool. And I don't know if I have any footage of me putting it together, but you will definitely see it when it's completed. So I use these curtains from, I believe these are from the mid-century set from the store. So I placed them down initially and I took them away. I was just kind of flicking through different kind of curtains and stuff to see which ones I wanted to use. I was going to use these blinds, but yeah, I wasn't too happy with how they looked. I think this initial part here is me just slapping down and putting some kind of almost like placeholders and trying to figure out the styles that I wanted to use, so the different types of furniture that I wanted to use and the textures. I just had to stop the recording because there was a siren, so that was me, that wasn't you. And now I've transitioned to pretty much the final placeholder, not necessarily the color scheme, but the objects that are going to stay here. So you can see I've fully decorated, or not fully decorated, I've decorated the divider from Town Life stuff. I've switched out the cabinets from and changed them to the cabinets from Into the Future. And I've replaced the mirror as well. And I've also replaced the wall texture and I've put those curtains back. So yeah, that pretty much stays the same, but I just do a little bit more fiddling around with the color schemes and all that. So I'm putting the kitchen together now, with the last details of the kitchen. And I've got the stove hood, or the range hood, that came from Pets. I also put in these columns too, and the columns are just a way of dividing the space so that while it's still open, there is a bit of a clear divide between the kitchen and the dining space and the rest of the living area. At the moment, I'm just kind of adding in some extra decorations and clutter for the kitchen. Because this is a modern build, I didn't want things to look too overly cluttered, so there's just a few bits of clutter there. So there's the knife set, some paper towels, and a tissue box. So all in all, it's very simply decorated, and that is, I guess, when I was looking at reference photos of modern kitchens, particularly in apartment buildings, they are very minimally decorated. I would say this whole build and the interior design scheme that I've chosen is very minimalist. But hey, I guess it's good for performance, so yeah. I think more when I get to the suburban homes and those types of builds, things will look a bit more homey and cluttered. So I've moved back to the living space, and now I'm just making like a built-in unit with these bookshelves and a couple of the shelves from University Life, and then some shelves from Into the Future, and all in all, it just makes it look like a built-in unit for the TV. And then we've cut forward to where I've pretty much put everything in, and again, it's just me playing around with different styles and color schemes. Now, when I was editing this footage, it got to the point where I think in total there was about 20 minutes of me just decorating this one room. So the kitchen, the dining, and the living room all sped up. And so I had to make additional cuts here and there because it really would have been a struggle for me to talk over every little kind of change that I did in Creator Style, because that's mostly the changes that I was doing. I would do most of the changes in Creator Style, and then more or less I would, well, not more or less, sometimes I would change the furniture. So what I tried to do with the editing was show the stuff that stays, that you don't really see any of the transitional things that I did, like where I kind of used completely different objects and only for them to just be removed entirely. You will see some of that, but for the most part it's the footage that I wanted to stay is the footage of me working with objects that do stay in the build. And I guess apart from the initial decorating that I did, where you just saw me putting the layout and the initial experimentation that I did with the floor plan. But anywho, I'm now decorating this desk here, which just has a laptop, and this is just a little study nook, and I'm using the Sims 3 decorator tools to play around with the object placement. One thing that I actually discovered while I was building this was with the decorator tools is, my initial thoughts were that you could only move objects up and down by 10 centimeter increments. And if I encountered an object that I couldn't get it to sit quite on a surface properly with the 10 centimeter increments, then I just wouldn't use that object at all. But then later on down the track, I discovered that you can actually place objects with 1 centimeter increments, but that's much later on down the track. So there's actually some objects here that I've placed, particularly a piece of paper. You would have seen me place it down on the desk and then I took it away, but that, if I'd known about the 1 centimeter increments then I would have kept it, but yeah, I figured that out later on and I didn't think to put the piece of paper down. I was happy with how that desk space looked, so it just stays the way it is now. I'm working on the balcony at this moment, and this is just a very simple balcony. It's just got a barbecue, a table and chairs. I put in a seat, like a love seat, and it also gets a plant and I believe a light from late night, one of the lights that looks like those outdoor gas heaters, which I think looks, just adds a bit of nice detail there. But yes, it's a very simple balcony, and the balconies are very small. I didn't want these huge sprawling balconies because I couldn't really see any types of balconies like that on the reference photos that I used, and also just mindful of the fact that I wanted to keep this penthouse on one level and I wanted most of the space to be inside. So I've moved to the entryway and I wanted like a nice end table next to the front door, but a lot of the end tables, in fact I think all the end tables in The Sims 3 are quite bulky, so I just went with some stacked shelves and used Sims 3 decorator tools, of course, to place the objects at the height that I wanted them. At this stage I'm still only using 10 centimeter increments, so I was adjusting the shelves to be the same height as the objects, as opposed to the other way around that I could have done if I had known about the 1 centimeter increments at this point. But yes, this is pretty much what I wanted, and yeah, I just think it looks nicer than a big bulky end table. Now we've moved on to the hallway, and this is just a very simply decorated hallway. Hallways aren't really that exciting, so I didn't want to spend too much time on this, but I'm doing the same thing that I did with the entryway, where I'm just stacking some shelves to make like this nice looking hallway side table, or hallway sideboard, or hallway table. They've got a lot of different names, but yeah, you can see, I think the idea that I was trying to get at is coming across. Put in some artwork and also a chair in there just to fill up the space. Now I'm working on a laundry space, and you may notice that I've already completed the half bathroom and the ensuite bathroom, and I don't have any footage of any of the bathrooms of me putting them together. You'll see me play around with some color schemes, but not me kind of playing around with object placement or anything like that. And that's just because, just for convenience, this video is already quite long. It's almost an hour long altogether, so I was just mindful of the length of the video, and I feel like bathrooms are really not that exciting. They're very, very simple and they always have the same stuff in them, but you will see me play around with the color schemes. The initial color scheme that I actually put together for the ensuite bathroom, which you can see on the right hand side now, I was a bit distracted when I put that together, and that's because my dad rang me when I was doing that, and so I was talking to him and doing this bathroom, and so I really wasn't paying attention. It didn't have my full attention, so it ended up coming together in a way that I didn't quite like. So you will see me revisit the color scheme of that soon. Now I've got the bathroom for the two, I'm going to call them kids' bedrooms because I've decorated them like kids' bedrooms, but they have access to the two bedrooms, two kids' bedrooms have access to a bathroom here. And this bathroom here, I actually quite like it. I like the color scheme that comes together. And this one, immediately when I went with this kind of brown and beige color scheme, brown, beige and black, I was like, I like this color scheme way better, so I'm going to do something similar with the ensuite bathroom, which was more gray and I think gray and white. And I don't know, like it was looking a bit too dull and just really wasn't what I liked. Very simple bathroom here with a bathtub, got a shower, and I've put an end table underneath the sinks in both bathrooms just to fill out the space underneath. I do like the look of these sinks, but I wanted them to look more like pedestal sinks, so I just put some end tables underneath those. You will see in the footage that the pedestals I did when I was playtesting the lot, I did have to move them back a little bit because they were causing routing issues. Sims wouldn't use the sink where they, with the pedestals, with the end tables underneath the sinks as they are placed now. So I did have to move them back slightly, but they pretty much maintain the same look that I've got going here. So you can see I am recoloring the ensuite bathroom, and it's quite a long bathroom, and it was a unusual space to work with. Also, I will say now that I wasn't able to take any panning shots of the bathroom, just the way that the camera was working. When I tried to angle the camera in this bathroom, all the objects were disappearing. So I just took a regular screenshot of this bathroom and the half bathroom. That's come together, and I've gone with the color scheme that I mentioned before, and now I'm moving on to the master bedroom. So again, this is very minimally decorated. So we've got some shelves. I'm again using the shelves from Into the Future. So you can see I've used these shelves a lot, and I feel like they just add some nice modern detail to the build. And going with the black, beige and white color scheme. But they're nice shelves as well because they double as, end tables for the bed. And then I'm just putting some artwork above it, and I am recoloring that now, just giving it a more, modern looking texture, but also something that's a bit more interesting to look at rather than just a flat wall texture. Adding in some curtains and then choosing a dresser. So this room comes together pretty quickly. I was pretty much set on where I wanted everything to be, and the color schemes that I wanted to use, so I didn't have much trouble with this room. In fact, the rest of the house comes together much faster than the initial portion of the house, or the penthouse, and that was mainly because I just had all the colors figured out, the color schemes figured out, and I knew the style of objects that I wanted to use. And I think with the color schemes as well, having it more consistent throughout the house is just a bit easier on the eye. In terms of looking at the house from a bird's eye view, it can be a bit chaotic if things are drastically different from room to room. I know that's more common in real life to have some rooms have different color schemes, and while there is some of that, particularly with the kids' bedrooms, I wanted to make sure that all the colors flowed nicely and we're consistent and all that, so it was a bit easier to look at. And I'm putting in a phone next to the bed there because it kind of looks like an alarm clock as well, so just some extra detail. All about those extra details. I mean, yeah, that's really the only reason why I do that kind of stuff. Now moving on to the, I think this is, yeah, the teenager's bedroom. So the kids' bedrooms, one is for a child and then the other one's for a teenager. I left the genders kind of ambiguous because, I mean, depending on who you want to live here, you can decorate the rooms according to the gender or just recolor some stuff. So yeah, the teenager's room I'm doing here, I'm playing around with the placement of some objects, and like it might start to become apparent now, but I'm trying to place the objects in a way that looks like they're more built into the room rather than just kind of individual objects that have just been placed there. So with the set of drawers and the desk, I placed them super close together so that they look like they are just one object. And then I also place another into the future shelf above the desk, as you can see I'm doing here. Just move it over with the decorator tools mod so that it looks like it's built into the set of drawers. And then I'm going in and just adding some details to the teenager's room. The wall texture I do change, I darken that, and you'll see that in just a moment. I did put an end table there initially, but the room was starting to look a bit cramped, so I just replaced that with a standing lamp, which you can see here. I placed one down initially and then I changed it to this more modern looking one, whereas the other one was more of a classical looking lamp that I recolored to make it look more modern, but that didn't work very well, so yeah, I just found this other lamp to use. And now I am decorating the shelves and just the desk as well to make it look a bit more lived in. And so I've got this like octopus toy here on the shelf that I also put in the arcade, so you could maybe imagine that the sim got that toy from the arcade, who knows. And I also put in this like bulletin board, and I do replace that because I don't know, is there any gameplay that's associated with that bulletin board? Because when I was play testing this a lot and I went into live mode, the bulletin board disappeared and then it would reappear when I would go into build mode, and I couldn't be bothered figuring out what was wrong with it or why it behaved that way, so I just replaced it in the end with a different set of like pictures or something like that. So you'll see that in the panning shots. I've also placed a bookshelf, like a little skinny bookshelf from the ultimate, I think it's the teens ultimate bedroom set or something. And then on the balcony, I'm just placing a chair. And I'm putting some lights on the balcony as well. And I do put lights all around the building, so on all the balconies, so that they all light up at night. Now moving on to the kids' bedroom. So this is the child's bedroom. Again, like with the teenager's room, I am keeping this one pretty gender neutral. It's got an orange and a blue color scheme. And yeah, I just feel like, you know, it's an easy color scheme to work with as well. I was just looking at reference photos on the internet on how to, like, particularly with kids' bedrooms and modern color schemes for kids' bedrooms, and I found this nice kind of blue and orange color scheme, and I thought that was quite gender neutral, so I went with that one. That massive like bulletin board, I do change that. This is kind of where I wish Sims 3 had a feature where you could shrink down objects, because I do like that object. It's just so huge. I don't know, was this the start of the trend with the Sims team where they just started making things ridiculously oversized when they, you know, when the Sims 4 first came out? You know how there's like massive doll houses and cupcake machines that just are so big they don't make any sense. I don't know if this is where the trend started, but that board is way too big, so I do replace that. Now we've got a toy box in the corner there, and there is a dollhouse. Now I'm just looking for a lamp to use, and I choose this little lamp here that has it's almost like a fairy tale lamp or a medieval lamp or something. So I've placed that, and then I'm placing this little anime looking figure, and that just goes in the corner there. And then I'm placing this little cat clock, and that is blue, and I just recolor that to be more of a, I guess, more flattering blue than an overly saturated one. Now, because I put a bookshelf here that acts as a bit of a divider between the bed and the entryway to the bedroom, I did put a chair in the corner, so that could be like a little reading space. And now I'm just looking for something to fill up this big empty wall here. So I placed this kind of dragon and knight picture to start with, but I do replace that, and you will see that change in the panning shots. Now we've moved back into the space. Now there's very, very few changes that I'm making here. I'm just retexturing the floor, and I will tell you that in the panning shots, a couple of those columns come out to make, because I just felt like they were a bit too over the top as they were done now. And I came into the bedroom and or the master bedroom and added a rug just to have it look more kind of bedroom like, so that, you know, when you're getting up in the morning, you're not stepping onto cold wooden floors, you actually have a rug to step on. I also go back into the child's bedroom and add a rug as well. And I like these little rug pieces from Into the Future because they're very customizable. Because yeah, you can kind of make your own kind of custom sized rugs, which is really cool. And this is where you can see me replace the picture with some fish, and I place in a little unicorn toy. And now we've reached the end of the video where we're going to see the panning shots. So if you've stuck around this long and you've put up with all the edits and the revisiting of the same spaces over and over again, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to bring this to you, and I hope you enjoyed it nonetheless. This lot here is going to be available to download, and I will leave a link to that in the description below. But that's all from me, and so I will say take care, and yeah, talk to you later.